Hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
How are you?
I am good. So nice to see
Nice.
you and finally talk with you. We have been
Yeah, you too.
we have been on a social media for so a couple of years, 3, 4 years, perhaps.
Yeah, I want to say 2020, like maybe towards the end of 2020 is when I started moving myself into the online space. And I think we started crossing paths right about the same time I moved from I had therapy practice in Arizona.
Yeah,
When I
exactly.
shifted that, I started playing around. Mostly on Facebook is where I think we first met.
Yeah, it's funny because um, the guests that I've been inviting lately for the podcast are guess that I started to engage like back to 2020, and we have been around on the social media and this environment, and not having like working together, but being in touch with the work that we have been doing. Like I have been watching how you are showing up on online, and all the guests that I've been having here on my podcast as well. And I felt like start to inviting those people in, because I have never talked with you and so many of them like one-on-one. We didn't
Hmm.
have a session, we never worked together. And because I have changed the course of what I wanted to be doing, and suddenly I want to do something more related to arts and people that were doing arts and creating a life from art, that what they want to, and having a living from there,
Hmm.
because I
Hmm.
know so many artists, and also in my family we are a family of artists, and there is some. I'm starting in this point right now.
You say you're studying?
I'm starting from this point.
Starting. Got it. Got it.
Starting, yeah. If you don't get some of my words, because sometimes my Portuguese mingles with English and
Yeah.
a little
No,
bit.
I got it. I got it. I
Yeah,
just wanted to make sure I heard you right.
yeah, cool. Um, I have a lot of members in my family that are artists, and the thing that they most struggle with is like, how do I make a living from the art that I do?
Mm. Hmm.
From what I see you online, I feel and I know that you are someone that is creating a life from what you want and wish to create, and you are
Mm.
creating that wealth, that income from whatever you are doing. So,
Hmm.
in my view, when I first send you an invitation to be on this podcast, was mainly to not to teach, but to explore possibilities. How can other artists that are on the artistic world, how can they do a life from a living, a living?
Sure.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the.
It's a big question. It's a really big question. I love it though. I love the question because um part of my business, well, it's evolved for many, many years. I've been an entrepreneur for a decade now, and it started in kind of like a more traditional path, but at the same time, still somewhat out of the box. So I'll be happy to share a little bit about that. But as it's evolved, my current kind of frame, if you will, of seeing my work and then offering my work in the world is through this lens of the tantric art of life and business. And I choose those terms very intentionally because in the tantric tradition, you're kind of living from the question more than the answer. So I've really, if I look, retrospectively, I've been living in the question that you're asking for at least 20 years.
That's
And
why
I keep getting a different answer every day
that's why I picked
because we're evolving.
exactly. And because
Yeah.
I've been watching you and I've been reading your posts, and I've been seeing that there is something that you are um, exploring deeply
Mm.
in.
Mhm.
And I thought, no, this woman must be in the show and share what is happening in our life, and how is she um, accessing all those parts of herself that is making her work evolving and evolving every time that
Mm.
she's whatever is you are doing, because I know
Right.
that we we don't necessarily we are doing the same. We are just evolving, and sometimes we stop, and sometimes we need that time to pause, because it's part of an artistic life of someone that is doing.
Sure.
Yeah. uh,
Yeah, I like to think of it as like the sacred pause, and I've had a few. And I'm somewhat in the middle of one. I mean, I'm still, it's winter, right? So it's like there's a more inward feeling tone, but I'm also like starting to share bits and pieces of what that inward experience has been. And you mentioned that you came from a family of artists, and I thought to myself, oh, I think I did too. But I found that they were closeted. So it has been part of my kind of generational gift, if you will, to bring me and the family like out of the closet. And so when I think about like where did the question begin, I said I have been asking myself and answering that and dancing in that for 20 something years. I remember being in art school and I had chosen to kind of step away from the traditional, I have the salary, I have the mortgage. Now this feels like a very scary leap to venture away from that kind of path and do the art thing. And
mhm.
in one of my studios, having a question with my grandmother who was alive at the time, and her saying to me, but how are you going to support yourself? Like, how are you going to create money? And that is the question. Like, that was the question then, and it informed my entire trajectory. Because if I looked at it from the traditional lens, I'm like, okay, well, I have to be a really good artist who can just sell her butt off at art making. I can teach because they say the how do they say it? It's like those who can't do teach. So I can teach art and then maybe like sell a little on the side and that kind of thing. And that was like the very traditional. And I didn't
Paradigm.
love those options. So I just marinated in the question some more while I was making art still, and along came this path of art therapy. So I didn't really seek it out, it came to me. And so it became this thing to play with. And even after, I think, 7 years of having a group therapy practice, art therapy practice, there was the question, still living in the same question from my grandmother of like, is this my forever? Like, is because some people pick a thing and they stay with it, and that's that. And I knew at the core that I had tasted so many different threads of creativity and artistry and taught workshops and sold art and all kinds of things. Like I was just always playing with the question. And it was like, oh, well, I can create this and I can sell that, and I can create this and I can sell that. And never wanting to be with that, I have to be in this box. I wanted to move between all the boxes. And so it was a little strange to be an art therapist because I didn't fit into the art scene 100% because I was a therapist, but I didn't fit into the therapist scene because I was an artist. So Maya Angelou has a quote, and I forget it. I can't quote her exactly right now, but it's about um, basically not belonging. And when you don't need to belong is when you are at the most peace, when you're no longer attached to that. Like, yes, you can feel connection in places that you go, but when you belong nowhere is when you belong to yourself. And I think that I've been living that experience for a very long time. And most artist archetypes will resonate with not belonging. It's just really like this human thing. Some are just more conscious of it than others, if that makes sense.
Yes. And also there is this like limiting belief that, for example, in my family, and uh, that we all feel the same, like, how are you gonna make money through art? Art doesn't make any money. You're not going to survive with art. Like, you have to go be a surgeon or a medical, or go to another find another job, because through art you will never ever succeed. And so there is this pattern in my family, and I have huge brilliant family art members that do and create spectacular work of arts, and still are struggling with that belief.
It's like the starving artist archetype.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So neither they are doing something, or if they do, they're not trusting that they are going to live through their art. So now I'm running out of money, so I'm not sure if I'm going to live through my art in my life.
Right, right.
So,
Yeah,
but
it's an interesting dilemma, and also a very easy solution. That's the beautiful part.
tell me, so everyone that will listen to this podcast will know.
Yeah, yeah, it really is at the simplest, like at the core,
Yeah.
it's a decision. It's like a decision energy of that's not going to be my path. That's not going to be my story. That's not going to be the ending of this, whatever.
Even
And
yeah, please go on.
and in that, especially when it comes from a long line of generational survival patterns or deep beliefs, it's like an audaciousness required to interrupt that pattern.
Yeah.
Because I actually was in art school. I already graduated college with this feeling of like, well, now what the hell? Like, I have a degree in psychology and an art minor. What am I supposed to do with this? But did find a job and whatnot. So doing art on the side in that way, in many different sides, actually, I had a lot of interest in that way, which is what was the impetus to go back and say, to hell with this salary and mortgage and blah, blah, blah. And even in that scenario, I was showing artwork before I was mastering art. So before, the traditional education system is saying, like, take this course and take this course and then refine this and then um, do these copies. I forget what they're called right now, but master, you like copy the masters to refine your
Mhm.
skills so
Exactly.
that you can then perfect your body of work, etc. Well, obviously I've already mentioned feeling like I didn't belong and being outside here and outside there. Well, outsider artists are hugely successful without ever having gone to school. So they just have made a commitment already to like, well, this is what I love to paint and this is what I love to make. And no, nobody taught me to do it. And yes, I might have made it with garbage on the side of the street, but I love it. I've made something beautiful. I'm going to sell it to feed myself. As an outsider artist, they don't have to wait to sell. They don't have to get a diploma or a degree to do those things. They just do those things. So here I am in art school for the fun of it, but I was already looking for how many places can I show the art, not because it's the best art. I want to sell and show now. And so I was making money while I was still in school from my art, not because I was the best artist. I'm not that great of an artist, because I had already decided I'm living in this question. My grandma asked me, how are you going to make money from this? Well, let me figure it out. I'm living in the question, not studying the question, moving and dancing in the question. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And
I'm willing to look like a fool. My students and peers next to me are like, who the fuck is she? Like, why is she showing? She didn't even finish her whatever. She doesn't have her master's. She doesn't have her bachelor's in art. How is she getting a
exactly,
gallery?
exactly. And I have a member in my family, and I'm gonna share this podcast with her because this is highly, highly on point for her. Because she's been an artist since she was born. She has been painting canvas since she was born. It's like something that she's an artist,
Mm-hmm.
period. And there was a time of her life that she went to the art school and she graduated in art school. And so what? She keeps in the same place like she has been all her life. Like, how am I going to
Mm,
make money from my art? And today
right.
I was talking with her and she was telling me, listen, um, I only have money to live and to pay my mortgage and my bills and so on for more 2 months. And I have sent my resume for a gallery where I live, where am I living? And they said, yes, please send us your portfolio so we can see your work. And she's been procrastinating and telling me, well, it's not done yet, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna wake up every morning and I'm so focused on that. And I was telling her, that will never be done. You have to do whatever you
Right.
have available right now and send them the portfolio and start showing your work of art to the world, to galleries, to whatever you already
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a thing that happens with self-sabotage is really what it boils down to. Because if you're waiting for better work to then get in, then you're just cutting yourself off at the knees. And yes, you can still create better work, but you don't discount the current work. And believe me, when I told that story of 20 something years ago of showing at that time, I wasn't in the best of galleries. I wasn't in the best places that I wanted to play with later down the road, but I was willing to do then and there. And even still, when my taste changed, because before I actually got into some of the fancier galleries that allured me at that time, I was being invited into this art therapy world, which was taking me overseas. And I now had this mortgage of a house that I wasn't living in, but I had rented out. And so now I needed and wanted more surplus of income to have while I'm abroad for the summer. And so I just pop up a yard sale with art. I called it a yard sale, just art, and sharing with people, like, this is my current body of work. I'm moving this current body of work because I'm leaving the country. You can create your own circumstances when you're in that student slash child archetype. For those people who've studied archetypal language, you're waiting for permission, you're waiting to be told this is good enough, you're waiting to be told, now's good for you, like, get the A plus, and then you can have a successful career. When you're an outsider, so to speak, you determine. This is a sovereign path of, like, well, I don't see a gallery knocking down my door, but my yard will work just fine, right? I'm setting the tone here of sales happens today, sales happens where I say it happens, and you create the circumstances for yourself.
So now moving after you saying all this, and after you sharing all this, so you work with archetypes, correct? And archetypes is
Yeah, I
part of
do.
it's part of your body of work. So in which ways? So no, let me just ask a different question.
And just to clarify, I have worked with them. Currently, I'm in a space of some of my clients don't really need that anymore. And sometimes they do. So I really love working with clients where they are in, bespoke packages and that kind of thing. So sometimes I'll be working with them and with the archetypes, and sometimes it's less necessary. So it's usually kind of just one of the tools in the toolbox.
It's like depends on the clients that show up in your life, because
Right.
you can sense if they need that archetypal phase to know where they are and to where they need to move towards in order to
Yeah.
start, empower themselves and start instead being in a lower like level where they have been
Mm-hmm.
their whole life and staying there, like sabotaging themselves and not showing them to the
Where
world.
they're still actually believing the conditioning, right? Instead of seeing through the thoughts and emotions as just these passing things.
And seeing things like it's so simple as I can decide where I'm going to. I can
Yeah.
decide, no, today I'm going to do this, today I'm going to do that,
Yep.
and I'm going to show my work of art of there. And this is something like, for example, I live in Portugal, you live in States, and there are many artists all over the world, and many of them are still struggling with that. Some of them are still with that belief that I'm just going to be a famous artist when I'm deaf, when I'm gone. Right.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, like Van Gogh or some other artists that only became famous because they died. And
Mm-hmm.
their art only became famous after they left this body into
Plain. Yeah.
plane into the spiritual world. And in my vision, and that is part of some old paradigms where they thought about, they have this paradigm, and currently they can do things differently. They don't need to think that way anymore. Their art can be, they can sell art whenever they want, just by deciding and
Yeah.
determining that they want to.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest with you, COVID changed the climate a lot. And while um, all of my clients have creative capacity and are drawn to work with me because of that creative element, I believe everyone's creative and it's just different flavors, and it doesn't always fall into the realm of traditional art making. but for specifically for artists and, you know, painters and even musicians who I've worked with, COVID opened up a lot of space for people to say, my career, my financial wellness, my body of work, all of this is in my hands. Because if galleries are closed, if things are shut down, they are forced to say, well, okay, I'm going to have an online show exhibit. I'm going to have an online concert. I'm going to charge my own tickets, my own entry fees. And I loved working with people. It was like first few months after COVID, I remember, you know, working with a couple of clients to support them and doing that. It's very empowering to not let something external have power
over
over you
them.
in that way, where you're in a waiting game of like, I need to be accepted, I need to be validated by this curator or this gallery owner or whatever. If that's your true taste, and you know, you mentioned Van Gogh, it's like, if fame is not your true taste and just actually making a living from your creative expression and your art, that's something that is very doable, that has nothing to do with fame. It just has, in a particular area of interest for me, is the art of relationships. It's like, if there are people who've taken interest and shown interest in your artwork, nurture those relationships. Let those people know how much that means to you. Ask them if they want to buy something from your collection. Ask them if they know somebody else who needs artwork for their, you know, their office or their lobby or whatever. So I do think that a lot of artists would benefit from just basic business skills in the form of sales and marketing and networking that sometimes may not come as intuitively. So if
Which is
that's, you know,
exactly what you do. You
mm,
blend your arts and what you do in terms of art with business skills, with marketing and whatever. So any person that works with you can
they're getting both sides.
getting
That's
both
true.
sides, so they can
Hmm.
succeed, quote unquote, or create a life from what they really are here to do. So
Indeed.
I want to know everything about
For sure, for sure.
it.
um Yeah, I think, well, what specifically, what do you think for the people who love to listen to your podcast and the people that are drawn to you, what do you feel like is one of their number one struggles? Because that might be a good place for us to start.
For
Because
example,
obviously there's a lot, but yeah.
what you just said, that like going to a gallery or just writing a post and asking if someone wants my work of art to be displayed in an office or something like that. It's something that, like, in where I live and the people that I
Mm,
talk to that are artists and are still struggling while making their living from their art and from what they love doing it. It's like they
mm.
are extreme. They're struggling with that.
I see.
It's like they don't value their art enough, and they
Right.
don't put themselves enough outside out there,
Right.
and don't have creative ideas
Hmm.
how to put their art outside in a way
Hmm.
that can bring them the income that they want.
Right. So I'm going to answer that question in a way that will allow anyone, including artists, to really like start. I mean, this is from a newbie level. Let's say you don't have a
Yeah,
business at
exactly.
all, or you are a veteran who is like burnt the hell out and you're like, I need a sacred pause because this isn't where I want to be playing. And you're getting ready to start fresh. So you have all the kind of business skills behind you. What can happen is, um, when we're starting new from anything, even if we have this like repertoire of experience, it we kind of go into like a baby, you know, like it's like being an infant again. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm starting fresh. Where do I begin? It can be a little overwhelming. And I will say one of the like easiest steps that you can take is literally to just sit down and make a list of 20 places that you would love to see your work. So that means artists, you know, if it is that you're wanting to hang paintings, musicians, if it is that you're wanting to play, uh, coaches, therapists, helping professionals, etc. If it is that you're wanting people to meet you, see your cards, see your name, go to your website, refer, have people refer to you. Having just a list of 20 places is a beautiful starting. And that can be both online or locally if it is that you're wanting to do things in person. What happens is you start with just that 20 and then you're out and about and living your life and you start to see how easy it's like a synergy of like it could be here, it could be here, it could be here, it could be here. We don't know if it's going to actually end up in those specific places, but it's got your juices flowing of all the ways, and then from there you can start connecting with those people. So it might be as simple as stopping by if it's in a I'm just picturing a boutique right now of
Yeah.
places that could be taking on new consignment and new artists. Um, but you're building relationships while you're doing that. It's not just like, so this is an energetic and an internal game as well. But these action steps are going to bring up the internal kind of shadows, if you will, that you can clear as you're taking the action. Because let's just say, for example, you're nervous about introducing yourself to these new places and you don't like the idea of, you know, like putting yourself out there. And we like to, my clients and I like to call it stranger danger when it is that you're putting yourself out like that. It's like actually bringing that to the surface is perfect so that you can see what it is that you've been dragging around with you.
That is blocking the.
Yeah, because you can, believe me, I've had people where they take this task from their head and then it's just a check. And if there's a self-limiting, sabotaging belief in there, then it's like, look, I did it. I did the assignment. I don't have anything to show for it, but they did it from an energy of like, I'm just going to drop my card off and run. That's like a hot potato energy. They don't actually want to be seen and felt and heard and all the things that technically their higher self is begging for. That's part of, like, when I talk about the tantric art of life and business, it's like all of us at a deeper level want to be seen and heard and those patterns to be exposed. So we have this very specific taste that will allow those patterns to come up and be stripped down so that we are more comfortable in that level of intimacy with people asking more about our work. And when we're willing to be present and feel all of that, we'll be very surprised at how many doors start to open up.
Exactly. I do understand everything that you have just said. And I see so many artists around me that still are playing on that side that you have just said, that they want to be seen, they want their art to be seen and valued, but at the same time they self-sabotage themselves by, oh, I'm just going to put this like that, but I'm going to worry.
Yeah, it's kind of kinky. I think about it when I was it's probably like right at 10 years ago now. I was doing an art show in Phoenix and I also had started my art therapy practice. And on the conscious level, I was telling myself, oh my God, I don't want to talk to these people. I don't want to like have to stand here and answer questions about my art. Like, it was a very immature part of me, but it was like, I just like to do my art. I don't know what it's about. I don't want to talk about it. I don't have anything to say. But the minute someone came up and asked me about my art, The next thing I know, I could have given a whole podcast on one painting. At an unconscious level, I did want to talk about my art. I did want someone to care enough to ask. But there's this whole thing that happens in our patterning and conditioning and protective layers where we kind of act like we don't want it and we push it away and we don't want to care too much and we want to look cool and not desperate and all this stuff. But at an intimate level, we do actually want to be deeply connected, as humans do, in the whole messiness of it, even if we don't know what we're going to say, even if we don't know what's going to come out. We want to get, in an evolution and maturation perspective, we want to get to a place where we can just trust that, where we have so much centeredness in ourselves that, like you and I are doing, we can schedule a podcast, have no idea what it's about, and can't wait to show up and find out. That artist that's running from themselves just wants to sell it, just wants to, get the work out there, but not actually be seen in sales and marketing and relationships. They really do. It's just that at the protective layer, the unconscious is not yet been seen through. They haven't exposed themselves yet.
Do you see, or do you feel, or do you have an idea of what can block, like, the artists, their artistic work? Or do you think it's different, or there is something that is in common in all of artists, that they know that they are creative artists, they know they have their art to come out for the world, they are here to create something that is very unique to themselves. Do you see that any common pattern in those people?
Well, just to clarify, I think you're talking about someone who's feeling creatively blocked, not necessarily someone who's producing work and just not able to sell it, because I do think that those patterns or shadows can overlap and be a common denominator, but not always. Like if someone's creatively blocked, I find perfectionism is a real core issue with that. The idea of the creation is way more satisfying than to see what the actual skill level is.
I also feel that perfectionism can be an illusionary block in so many artists. Like, they are trying to figure out what would be, and in this case I'm talking about a member of my family, that she's trying to do this portfolio, and she's saying, I know I'm going to do it, but it's not finished yet. And I told her, it's not going to be finished ever, because art is an ongoing process. You will just
Right.
doing and doing. And I don't create what she's creating. She creates unbelievable works of art. She's a girl. She paints, she creates jewelry, she creates, I don't know, that woman creates stuff that, oh my God. And I'm just like, that is just fucking amazing. Why don't you put that outside? I'm going to do this and this and this and this. So why are you doing that? You are completely shutting down your gifts. You're not putting them outside. No, because I don't know anything about marketing, and that's okay. And
Right.
I don't want to. I want someone that to work with me, because I don't like doing stuff online. I need someone that writes something instead, me doing that while I'm creating that. And every time that I question her
It
about
is a slight dilemma in the what's the word? I think of it through the lens of taste and hunger. So if it is that someone loves the creative process and they love painting and creating and jewelry and all the things, but they are not particularly hungry, meaning they're not devoted to their taste, then they will use all of these reasons to kind of explain away why they can't create income from it, when really what they're saying is, I just don't I'm just not willing to actually admit and devote to, I don't want to just create, I want to be paid also for my creations. So there is this like self-defeating loop of, I can't, or I don't know how, or, and they just find reasons, but it's all really at the core level excuses to stay where they are. And at some point, the loving thing to do is to not, and not really, I did this with my mom actually, of like where there was complaining for a long, long time in different areas of her life, until I got to the place of like, we're not actually going to talk about that one anymore. Remember, you don't want to do any of the things that would allow it to change. And at some point, there's kind of like tough love, setting the limit, where she started making shifts and changes on her own and kind of from afar. And it's the beautiful work of shifting patterns, and allows for a lot of deep intergenerational things to shift and change, that we have a very different relationship, because I was willing to say, no, actually, until you're willing to do this, this, and this, you won't actually be able to change your situation. And I have to do that lovingly with clients. And sometimes I do it with gifts or songs when I don't want to explain, that they're in their shit and they're swimming through a swampy mess.
yeah.
And they will laugh. I will be able to, by doing that, they will laugh and catch their own shenanigans, and reflect back to me. I got a message just the other day that said, I love your medicine, because I literally just dropped a gif, like a picture and a music. And what was the song? I can't think of the song right now, but it was called Escapism. So she knew exactly what I was saying. Yeah. Without me having to find a single word, I said a picture
But
and a
that
song, and she was like, message received.
figure out by your
Yeah.
own, by yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Ask the question to move you forward. Cool. But if it is just a repeat of, I can't do this, I don't know how to do this, this isn't, like, you have to have some awareness of your own pattern. That is why I love the archetypal work, is because if someone doesn't yet have a recognition of their own patterns, I have a brilliant little quiz and blueprint that allows them to start identifying it, so that we can together say like, oh, I'm in that again. Because you have to at least be able to know that pattern is happening in order to interrupt that pattern.
Beautiful. It will be on this podcast available. So anyone that will see this podcast will have access to that quiz.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
I was going to ask something, because it's a question that, but it's coming through me. It's like, what do you consider art?
Pretty much everything. I mean, I just see life through that lens because of my own creative interest, but it's like, every experience has the capacity to be its own work of art. This podcast is an art form. An offer is an art form. Relationships are an art form. When I used to be in the actual therapy office with clients, it's like that 45 to 50-minute session was a Polaroid, it was a
I love
snapshot, an
it.
art, yeah, that could not be recreated. It was an individual
Exactly.
custom experience. Yeah.
Like this video program that she wants to show on the
Oh,
podcast.
nice.
Your time, your
Oh,
time,
that's special.
your time is up.
So cute.
She always wants to be wherever I am. I do share the same vision as you do. But I've spoke with so many artists till now, and they have several opinions, several visions. Like, no, that's not art.
Mm.
And I would say, how come? If I'm creating something new from the moment that I am going through, how come that is not art? Just because it's not painting or it's not writing, it's not a written form, how come this is not art? No, because art must have this and this and that. And for me, that is a very limited vision.
Right. Yeah. I think different people have different leanings based on their own interests. For example, because I ended up going down the art therapy path instead of the fine art path, it was very much a decision of I love the process and I'm more interested in the process. So even as artists that I loved following at that time, it was artists who combined painting with performance with sculpture. They were like crossing boundaries and bending and
Exactly.
blending.
That's the member of my family. She does exactly the same. She combines
Yeah,
everything, and she has
yeah,
this whole vision about art, and everything that she sees that does not matches what she's doing. No, that's not art. And I've been telling her, no, what I do is art as well. No, it's not.
mm,
So sometimes we have
yeah,
this discussions, but very healthy discussions about what art is. And she says something that for me I do resonate with, that art is something that must have some kind of emotional impact on the people that sees it.
right. And it's not just about seeing it, because if you take that definition, the culinary arts, for example, the art of meals and family meals, right? There's an art in that. The food makes you feel a certain way. You
The
can have
impact,
music
it's
that,
about the
right,
impact it creates in people,
right.
you know.
Yeah,
And
and so from that lens and perspective, obviously for the sake of communication, when we're talking about art, we can, like, I will usually preface traditional art by saying, like uh painting, music, dance, etc., things that have been categorized as art. But as we evolve and continue, even the business world has become way more infused with feminine artistry, or what's traditionally considered feminine is the art of it. And so as we keep evolving, I think this definition of art becomes more and more widely debated. I mean, if you think about, and this was, I don't know the timeline, but definitely over 50 years ago, when artists started testing what is fine art. When you have somebody presenting a toilet and calling it art because it's conceptual, because they're reflecting on whatever the shit of the world, it's like they didn't actually create something with their hands, but they made someone feel something, to your point. So it continues. I think it will be, the definitions will probably continue to evolve, and everyone will have their own opinions about it. I think in terms of the art of language, it's usually very important to kind of define terms a lot of the time, because sometimes, we're using language and one person means this by art and someone else means this, but that's true of any word. So
yes, and
I think that's,
if you go to the etymology, I don't know if this is the correct
mhm,
term, to the
yeah, it is.
origin of some words, and I've been doing this research on the origin of some words. It's like they go back to the, I don't know, 18th century, 7th century, and it's so amazing how some words and the original definition of words have been evolving through all the centuries, and right now they mean something that was not
Mm.
the first meaning of that word when the word was created, because so many words have been created
Right.
since then. And I've
Yeah,
it
it's like that game of if you ever played the game of phone, it's
exactly
like by the end of
at
it,
the end of
and
it.
now we have Urban Dictionary because of such.
And I love that. For me, I create my art is through words. And I love, sometimes I say I just create some words and I'm just like, what am I talking about? I've never heard this word before, but I'm gonna use it anyway because it's coming from me, so must be awesome. Must be awesome. Like
Yeah.
that word doesn't even exist. And I say, of course it exists. If it's coming from me, if it's coming from me and I'm right here, it's because it exists.
I do love to make up words. That is very fun.
It's so fun. It's so fun. And sometimes I'm just like, am I saying this word right or not? I don't even care. I'm just saying it because I love saying it, because it feels good saying it. And I know that my work of art, it's more through words and through images than it
Mm.
is from painting. On although I've I've painted things during my life, and what I felt when I was a little girl, it was like, this is really dark. I'm
Mm.
all the girls from my class were like painting like this Barbie stuff, pink stuff, and I was just like dark, 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 dark. And I was just like comparing myself and comparing the work that I was doing with all of them, and I was always felt like, perhaps my heart, the type of art that I'm doing, it's not good.
Which would have been part of your conditioning, right? Because as kids, that's how we learn is through comparison. And yet you already had a unique taste. Back to bring this full circle, it was like the belonging wasn't there. And the meaning that got made from that is what created the conditioning. Because if maybe hadn't have created that belief around it that it was not good because it was different,
And it
then
was
who
me.
knows, you
I
might
wasn't
be painting some very dark paintings that are beautiful and
and
stone and whatnot.
even dark black, wearing black, it's like black, it's been my color of my life, and I love wearing black. I feel good wearing black. It's not, I don't feel like I'm in depression or I'm in a bad mood.
No,
Actually,
it's all about the meaning, right? Everything has a unique and personal. And I remember being in art therapy school, a really nice story that a teacher told me one time to make sure we weren't boxing in and like diagnosing and pathologizing people based on thinking that it's only one meaning. Was a kid who came home and was painting black and black and black and black, and the parents were getting concerned and like, why is the kid, and then come to find out he loved Batman. What's the problem? If you have a shitty doctor or a shitty therapist, now this kid's on Ritalin or something, or an antidepressant, not Ritalin, but an
yeah.
antidepressant because of some misdiagnoses. So it's very important not to like jump to conclusions, just because, but culturally speaking, all of these it's like shortcuts get created, shortcuts, and then it becomes people saying things like, oh, I should wear bright to be brighter. Like,
Yeah.
if you love black.
Yeah, and there was a time of my life when I was a teenager that I only uh, used to buy like black clothes. And my mother was really concerned that I only wanted to wear black clothes. And I didn't wear anything from other color. And she thought that I was going to a depressive mode or something like that, but I just enjoy black.
Yeah, it's so funny. The human propensity to find problems. There is
Yes,
no
my problems
problem.
and when we are kids and we are on our teens, we tend to, we want to belong, we want to be part of the community. And if someone says that, oh my God, you have a problem just because you want to wear black and everybody's wearing, all the girls from your age are wearing pink and red and whatever the fuck. And I was just like, but I want to wear black. That's the color that I'm,
Good for you for sticking with your taste.
and I'm still sticking with my taste. I'm still wearing black till today, and I'm good with that. So,
Yeah, it
but
suits you.
it suits me. Yeah, it suits me, and it does not make me heavier or depressive or whatever. Actually, right now, as a woman, where I am right now, it enhances all my energy and the woman that I am, and I have no problem with that. So, what else would you like to talk about and speak about what you do?
Well, I am feeling complete. I think
Mhm.
if we have more to get into, we might want to schedule a second call.
We can,
Um,
we can.
yeah, because I feel complete for today. I don't know how much you know about human design, but as a projector, I'm like spurts of energy and then done. And
I'm gonna
so
do it.
I'll be wrapping soon to get water and all the things. But I'm glad we took this time because this was a beautiful conversation.
Let's do a human design call. I'm a manifestor generator.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I am not like I'm just disclaimer. I am in no way a human design expert. However, I do know my own system and body, and I have really enjoyed like having it reflected back. You know how human design just kind of like reminds you, oh yeah, that is how I operate. So that could be a fun conversation for us.
Let's do a human design hardcore conversation.
That sounds fun. Yeah, we'll have to do that.
No, we're going to do that because I want to talk about that.
Okay. Perfect.
Lanie,
Perfect.
it was beautiful to have this talk with you. I
Yeah, you
There
too.
was so much juice, and whoever will see this podcast, I'm sure it's gonna it's they will going to take many gems from this talk. Even I took many gems from this talk. So thank you so much for accepting my invitation,
Awesome.
for being
Yeah,
here,
no, thank you.
taking the time, and I love talking with you. So
Yeah,
I
it was a
so
blast.
look forward for our next talk about human
Me
design.
too. Me too. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It was a fun chat. And yeah, we'll talk human design soon.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Have a
All
nice
right, take care.
day,
You
night,
too.
whatever. And I'll
All
talk
the
to you
things.
soon.
All right. Bye,
Bye bye.
Rita.
Thank you.